block and looking for the address.
We have nothing against immigration.
My lesson is, Justice Arkin, you should have big
There's a reason they're doing it illegally. We don't like
People
that.
don't have, especially in New York where the trees, where the lights don't shine through the trees.
So my father was going to get an address plate like you have on your house to clean it up, but it's very expensive. So you sponsor it, you'll put it on.
I sponsor everything.
Dallas is particular.
You always say just these expensive
Although
things like
their
regular
mayor switched from Democrat. He switched
Do
over
you
to
think your priorities are
months ago.
Right.
He said,
Hi, Regina, how are we today?
Austin is pretty.
Did you do a walk around this morning?
I didn't yet.
Yeah.
I assume you did.
I didn't.
You did, okay, good.
Huh?
Right here.
Yes.
Keep this Gilson here.
Yes.
Okay. Keep them away from people.
Very good, very good. I have no idea how serious I am about that issue.
I'm on it right now. I'll tell you what it's
Yeah, I don't want to know the answer. I just want to know the result. There's never a walk.
Okay.
Ready to roll.
Lights, camera, action.
That's last week.
Yes. I know he's after it. Okay, good morning. I'd like to thank everybody for coming. I think we have an exciting topic, even though it has to do with death. Now, Lamaisa,
Me too.
I do find the share, I think we all find it very exciting, very interesting. And from my perspective as Maggid share, you never know what one share is going to take you to, the path you go when you start learning halakha, interactions everybody over here has participating in the share. And last week, what happened was we're giving a share about halachas of the fast day, which I hope was good for everybody this past Friday fast. So within those halachas, we ended up speaking about the concept of a fast for a Yartzeit. And the reaction that I got inside this room, which I think is typical for in general in the film world today, was like a little bit of, oh, people do that? And when I was thinking about topics for this week's share, I thought, you know what? That's a good topic to delve deeper in, especially when I found that my friend recently published a beautiful sefer, a Parsha B'Halacha. And inside there, okay, it's for this coming week's Parsha, Parshas Vayechi, one of the shir that he gave was on this topic. And I took it as divine providence, hashgacha pratis. This is the perfect topic to talk about. And I figured, let's give it a try. And when I researched it, I see there's a lot to him over there. I'll start like this. Unfortunately, anyone who has a Yartzeit to mark, obviously it's a very solemn day, and it's a type of thing as the years go on. Obviously, family members get together, spend time. That's very important. Obviously, most of all, we talk about saying Kaddish, potentially making a siyum, doing different things for the mace, for the deceased. Now, what I want to talk about this morning is a place in halacha about the concept of fasting. Fasting for the death of a loved one. Now, on the one hand, we'll see that obviously fasting is not necessarily easy for everybody, and that's something that has to be taken into the equation. But for the meantime, putting aside the element of how easy it is for a person to fast, we're going to delve into this topic. Where does it come from, this idea of fasting on a Yartzeit? I think we entitled the share, fasting on a Yartzeit, something different than Kichel and Schnapps.
Nobody does Kichel and Schnapps anymore. It's a whole new thing for them.
Okay, right. You need the herring also. Right, but normally, we talked about this last week, what's probably the most common way that people mark a Yartzeit is by serving something food, make a bracha for the Eloi of the person in the Neshama, which is a wonderful thing. We talked also about, last week we touched on the idea of a siyum, of learning something. There are people I know that spend a whole year learning with the goal to finish something on the Yartzeit of one's parents. It's a beautiful concept. They're spending time and time again. And then there's this other definitely much, not too common, people fasting. So I want to talk about this concept. Now, first and foremost, let's start by the Gemaras. Where is this concept mentioned anywhere in the Gemara? An idea of fasting on one's Yartzeit. So this I didn't put on the sheets, but there's a Gemara comes up both in the Nedarim and Shavuos. Shavuos it comes up on Chafim of Days. We know that a person could make a neder, could make a vow, it could make a shvuah, could make an oath for things. And practically what that means is a person, a guy's going on a diet, and he wants to pump up his diet. Now, usually we don't say to do this. Usually we say you should always try to do things with a li neder, without a vow, because vows are motzei tzvasecha tishmar. It's a isser in the Torah. If one would violate a neder, it's a big deal. So a lot of times we say, even with tzedakah donations, you pledge, you say the li neder, because you don't want to get involved, right? The whole Yom Kippur, Erev Yom Kippur, we focus, for the time really from Erev Rosh Hashanah, we do Atar Sadarim. On Yom Kippur itself, the first thing we do is called Nitrei. A person's vows are a big deal. The Gemara talks about, let's say a person did make a vow, right? I got to go on a diet. I'm making a vow. I'm asering Krispy Kreme donuts on myself. But the person uses language like the day my parent passed away. The Gemara's case is even more direct. The Gemara says, I'm not going to eat meat or drink wine like the day of my father's passing. That's the language of the Gemara. So it comes when the Rishonim, the Trumas Hadeshin, and he says, you see from here a source for fasting on a Yartzeit. Because the Gemara is giving an example. This is a valid form of describing an Isser. Maybe even Hatfasa. Not really. But a valid form of describing a prohibition a person is putting on himself. I want to prohibit meat to myself. I'm going on a diet. Prohibiting meat, just like the day that my parent passed away. So the Trumas Hadeshin says, you see from the language of the Gemara, there's such a thing as a fast day, the day that one's parent passed away. Now, if this was a clear-cut Gemara without any room to negotiate, so then I would think if you stop right here, then the substance of the fast would be much stronger. This is a clear Gemara that talks about it. We shouldn't push it. But already, part of the pushback, why it's not so simple, is the Gra says, you don't have a right from that Gemara. He says, what the Gemara could mean is the following. The actual day that a person's parent passes, on that actual day, it's prohibited to drink wine, to eat meat. So all the Gemara means is a person says, I want to prohibit wine on myself, meat on myself, just like the actual day that one's parents passed.
Not the Yartzeit.
Not the Yartzeit. The Trumas Hadesh and others are reading that Gemara referring to the Yartzeit.
Is it certain drinking wine and they pass away?
Yes. The Gra says, no, this is referring to that halacha. Really, we actually saw this halacha, also not so well known. Right? When the day that a person goes to Eretz Yisrael, and he goes to the Makam HaMikdash, we've been through these halachas, important halachas, and when the rice is, when tears kriya, that day, it says a person shouldn't eat meat, drink wine. Same. It's that day. So let's say a person would go in the summertime.
Why on the day of the death is that different than in Yartzeit? Day of the death in Yartzeit.
So I'll explain that in a moment. Excellent. Just even for the day a person sees the Chorban, he goes to the Kosel, and you could have this guy gets, takes the plane to Ben Gurion, goes straight to the Kosel. Right after the Kosel, I'll go out to some nice meat restaurant, still within the same day. One shouldn't do that. Because this halacha, that the day that one's parent passes away, that you're tearing kriya, should be viewed as such a sad day. So yeah, you can't have meat. As opposed to a Yartzeit, there it's perhaps debatable. It's a year past. It's 5 years past. It's 50 years past. It's not the same. So the actual day, the way I understand that, it's a higher level of respect. The day that one's parent passes away, yeah, that you can't do. So for sure, us to eat meat and drink wine. And similarly, we would say the same thing when going to seeing the Malkam HaMikdash. A person really should tear kriya when one sees that. It's like a day of passing. So yeah, you can't go out to a fleishik restaurant right away. Now, you could do, as long as it's after Shkia, you go once before sunset, one after sunset, that would be okay.
So the Gra doesn't say anything restricting in the consecutive future Yartzeits, right?
Correct.
There's no restriction.
Correct. He says not only, you can't prove from this Gemara that concept.
Is it? You go Friday afternoon.
Correct. There's no availus then. Then you wouldn't tear kriya, and of course you could eat Shabbos.
And if on a regular day, if I'm planning to go on the hotel 4 o'clock in the afternoon, can I eat meat for lunch?
Beforehand?
Before I go to the hotel.
Yeah. Yes.
Even though it's already scheduled in the day.
Yeah, because you didn't see it yet.
What if you don't tear kriya because you've gone 2 times
recently? Very good point. Right? For those who are on a trip and you've gone recently within 30 days, so then that day's free. You're just not living there. It's only once in 30 days the person hasn't been by the kosel, there comes up this halacha of tearing kriya.
What happens if you go Friday afternoon, so you can't tear kriya, then you go Monday? You have to tear kriya.
Excellent. And the answer is no.
You got around.
You got around.
You got around.
Yes. 100%.
It's a lawyer's loophole.
Yes. Now, so in terms of a source from the Gemara, that's not crystal clear. Some want to bring this Gemara in Shavuos and Darim, but the Gemara says it's not mukhrach, it's not provable. But you do find in Shulchan Aruch this halacha. If you look on your sheets, and Rachmiel, we're talking about looping shirim, I'm sure I'm going to come back to this halacha later in the year, not too far away. Look at the halacha. This is Orach Chaim Siman Tav Kuf Samches, the laws of fast days, and he writes Siv Zaid Kisheir Yom Shemeis Aviv O Imo Ba'Adar. Let's say a person has Yartzeit in Adar, V'Hashana Mubaris this year, and it's a leap year.
I have that.
So there's a big discussion. When do you mark the Yartzeit?
In Adar.
Right?
Yeah.
Now look at this. We're learning about the halachos of tainus, of fast days, and what's a nafkamina of a fast day, the halachos we're talking about. Oh, the day that one's parent passes away, if the Yartzeit's in Chodesh Adar, and you have a year which is a leap year, okay, will the real Adar please stand up? Which month do we mark it by? And there's a whole discussion about it. Now, perhaps, I assume we're going to get into this topic as we get closer to Adar. But what you already see from here is this is on the table. The Shulchan Aruch is bringing this concept of a fast for a parent's Yartzeit. We'll show it even clearer. Halacha Ches, skip to. Ein tzarich lesanos el biyom misas aviv v'lo biyom kvura. You don't have to fast except for the actual date of a person dying, but not the date of the kvura. There are many times where there's a separation between the two. And really both parts hold their own significance as a sad day, and to be marked, perhaps, is a tzad, one might say. Both days it should be marked, and maybe both days you should fast. To which the Shulchan Aruch is saying, you don't have to do both. You only have, the main one is the date of one's passing. But you see clearly from the Shulchan Aruch that he's assuming that one is fasting on the day that a parent passed away. Black and white.
Other than the first year, when does that happen? Don't you consider the Yartzeit a thing?
Right, but you can mark that on the calendar. You're right. The year, in other words, if any time a person passed away, if there was a gap between the death and the burial, for all future years, in theory, one could mark both days. And the Shulchan Aruch is coming to say, let's say it was 2 days in between. There's a tzad to say, I should fast, a person should fast Sunday, he should fast Tuesday.
But what do we hold as Yartzeit nowadays?
Just the day, right, that's the Shulchan Aruch is coming to say, it's just the day of the death.
Well, except for the first Yartzeit. Rabbi Zon Paskins.
It's Machlok the Shach and Tazanti.
Rabbi Zon Paskins, if the Kavura is the day of, or the next day, the Yartzeit first year is on the day of burial, on the day of Patira. If it's 3 or more days, the first Yartzeit is on the day of Kavura. The second day is a big machlokas.
This is fascinating, right? What Rabbi Berger just said, in case the home audience didn't hear, is there's an interesting nafkamina where the days are split, the date of the death and the date of the Kavura. People bring down
for the first Yartzeit.
For the first Yartzeit, there are some that say you mark by the day of the Kavura, assuming it's in close proximity, let's say the next day from the date of the death. What's interesting, it's only for the first year.
That's really
After that, it's the day
challenging for people.
of
Right.
Patira.
It makes it complicated.
Yeah.
Normally, this is his own topic, but we try whatever we can to have a burial as quick as possible to the time of the person's passing. And you're right. Once you start stretching things, besides of all the issues for the mace, halachically, it can make more problems. Yes. Now, so we see from here already a very interesting concept that the Shulchan Aruch is taking for granted that there's an idea of fasting on a Yartzeit. This is black and white in the Shulchan Aruch. Taken for granted. Now, is that Gemara a source? That's what we started with. The Gra says it's not necessarily provable from there. But by the time of the Shulchan Aruch, they already took for granted this idea that people fast on the date of Yartzeit. Now, I came across another very interesting halacha, also I would think very unknown. Halacha says, it's a Mishabura, Chafetz Chaim just slips it in over there. It's a little bit later on. This is Sif Katan Mem Vav. Chafetz Chaim quotes a shla. It's on the sheet there. Second thing. Tov lisanos yom shemesbo rabo muvak. It's good for a person to fast on a yearly basis on the Yartzeit of one's main Rebbe. Ki chaye b'chvodo yoser mekavid aviv. One owes greater honor and respect for one's Rebbe than even one's parent. Right? The Gemara talks about Avedas Aviv, Avedas Rabbo. You can only return one thing. You found in the street a lost item that belonged to your father, a second lost item that belonged to your Rebbe. You can only do one first. The Rebbe gets precedence. If it's your Rebbe Muvak, it's your main Rebbe, main person who taught you Torah, they get precedence. There's an idea Yeah. I was one of them when Reb Henoch Leibowitz passed away, the Yeshiva Chavetz Chaim. I'm not sure in modern times that this many people tearing Kriya. There were literally hundreds and hundreds, maybe it was even 1,000 people tearing Kriya on his, thousands, tearing on his day he passed. And there's a concept of a Rebbe Muluk, of the main Rebbe. And the Chavetz Chaim is bringing here in the Mishnah Berurah that one should fast on the day of a Yartzeit. Just like one fasts on the day of a Yartzeit for a parent, there's an inyan to one to fast on the day of a Yartzeit for a Rebbe.
How do you choose a main Rebbe?
So that's a very good question. I was waiting for someone to ask. I'm not saying I'm waiting with a good answer. You know, for Yeshiva Bacher, in a certain sense, it's easier. A person who learns in Yeshiva for many years, and there's a Rosh Yeshiva that you learned a lot of your Torah from, that's, in many ways, that's clear cut. You know, let's say a person had the schus to, it's like daven here in the Young Israel of Miami for 40 years. And Ray Larfel was his Rav, did everything for him. Yeah, I could see a person like that could be defined as a Rebbe Muluk. And the halacha might be for the day of Rabbi Larfeld's Yartzeit, people like that should be fasting. It's an amazing concept. What happens in the world today is, people go through phases. They live in one community when they're younger, another community when they're older. They might daven in one shul now, daven in a different shul. It's not the easiest thing. Right. I don't know that everyone has what they call a Rebbe Muluk. And I'm not sure fully what constitutes it. If you listen to the rabbi's speech on a Shabbos morning, does that make a Rebbe Muluk? Do you ask him most of your halachic shilas? Does that make a Rebbe Muluk? What's a defining factor? So, Ed, it's a fantastic question. As usual, that deserves its own share.
That's for next week.
We'll see. I'm scared of that one. That's not so simple. Okay, but here's where I want to delve in. Here's the next big step. What's the background? What's the reason for this fast? Why is it that one fasts by the date of the death, the Yartzeit, of one's parent? So if you look on top of your sheets, I found there's a shach in Yeridea. The shach, one of the first there in the Shulchan Aruch says, B'Shem the Levush, Sheyom Zeh Hu Yom Sakana Avura. The reason why you fast on the date of a Yartzeit is because it's, excuse the pun, it's a deadly day. It's a dangerous day. She'isra bo mazro. He has bad mazel in that day. We always talk about mazel tov. Unfortunately, there's also something as a mazel ra, as a bad day. Zeh she'meis bo aviv o imo. L'kach nis'aneh haben k'dei she'atanis hagin olav mikol davar ra. The reason for fasting, self-preservation. The day that one's parent passes away, doesn't matter, how long the person was sick, and the Maisa person passed away on this day. It's a bad day for the relatives. And a bad day for the relatives, Chas v'shalom, can mean other bad things can happen on that day. So to prevent that, to protect against that, there's this idea of fasting. This is what the Shach is explaining. The reason why the Shulchan Aruch is talking about the concept of fasting by the date of a parent's Yartzeit is for self-protection. It's better than an insurance policy. Insurance policy only pays out.
That's another whole
This
theory
protects.
now, the whole concept of mazalos.
Yes.
What if you have a bad year? A lot of people can look back on a certain year in their life.
Yeah.
This was not a good year.
Right.
Okay.
That could be. But you know what? In a certain sense, it's undefinable. It's relative to your perception in life. This was a bad year, and it could be subjective too.
Yeah.
but there's nothing as clear and as objective as death. The day that one's parent passed away, that's definitive. And unfortunately, it's a sad day. And it's bad mazel. I mentioned last week, it's a big shayla. Making, let's say, scheduling a child's wedding the day that the parent has Yartzeit, it's a very big shayla. Not so simple. Right? Because, especially now you understand this reason, that's considered a bad omen. It's a bad mazel. So you can marry off your child and walk your child to the chuppah the day that's a bad omen? Not so simple. Right? There are heterim. Nowadays it's not easy to get wedding halls, especially up north. So, okay. Yeah, you got to do what you got to do.
I think it would be common sense that you don't want to plan that, of course.
Right.
I can't think of a situation where it would be mandatory that it's done on the Yartzeit.
Right.
It's simply off the table.
Right.
Situation.
Right. But planning a wedding date usually involves 4 parties. The bride and the groom, his parents, her parents, and sometimes there's more than 4 parties. Hopefully everyone's married. It could be 8 parties. 6 parties.
6 parties.
Yeah. So it gets very tricky. But you're right. You're 100% right. Is ideally, this is the type of thing it's kedai to avoid. Now, but this is not the only reason. Now, I'll show you the Chassam Sofer has a different take why one would fast on a Yartzeit. If you look in the middle of the sheets, this is a friend summarizing the halachas. Ro poskim not lusha ikra tamatainis be Yartzeit mishum ro mazel shabbat. Most poskim say this first reason which I mentioned, that's the main reason why one fasts. Ulam das Chassam Sofer sheikar tam hu mishum tikin aneshama shalnes. Different idea. The reason why one fasts, it's a benefit, it's a kavod for the nifter. Nothing to do with the bad omen. The reason why one fasts, in a certain sense, is similar to a person saying Kaddish. It's something you could do for them. It's a tikkun. Very interesting. So you have 2 different reasons. According to most poskim, it's for the first reason, what the Shach said. The reason one fasts is it's a bad omen that day, self-protection. According to the Chassam Sofer, perhaps I'll show you others, no. The reason you do it is protection. To protect, is to honor, to be masakin, to give a schus for the nifter. Your fasting, which is an element of tshuva, is a schus for the nifter.
Is this 24-hour fast or a half-day fast?
Ideally, actually, it would be a 24-hour fast. But really, with this type of thing, a person could structure it. If they're not up to doing a full fast, perhaps could do half a day fast, till chatzos. It would be the type of thing that you would accept the day before, to whatever degree you want to shape it.
Is he talking about in the Chassam Sofer? Is he talking about a Yartzeit for a parent or a
parent,
sibling or a spouse?
Right. Simply here, we're talking about parents.
Parents, and this would perhaps fall into the rubric of kibbutz avim.
Correct. Yes.
It's one of the very few things you could still do for a deceased.
Correct. I'm not sure. Right. Gets into the whole issues of kibbutz avim achamoso, but yes. But this would be a means of doing something for one's parents. Now, you think about it. There are multiple halach nafkaminas, whether the reason behind it is bad omen, bad mazel, or is it to give a schus for the nifter? I'll give you one example, which the Chassam Sofer himself talks about. Let's say someone, and unfortunately during the Holocaust, or to be honest, unfortunately, October 7th, there are questions when a person passed away. And it's not clear the date of the death of somebody. What day do you keep? So let's work that out. If we say the reason is a bad and mazel, so protect yourself. Self-protection, it's smart to do it on both days. One of these days might be
days.
Huh?
It's a lot of days. There.
Okay. Let's say it's a reasonable situation where it's one of 2 days. It's either this day or that day. So you're protecting yourself. It's smart, right? You said before, put it off the table for both days.
Right.
If it's a schus, okay, look, you can pick one date. I'm dedicating this date as a schus. You want to do more kol kavod, but it's coming from a different angle. I saw another thing to post in the debate. This could get complicated, also in halacha. Let's say the father and the son were in different continents, different places. It's also very common. These things could happen. So the date when the person died, who do you follow? Where the father, the mace was? Let's say the father was living in Israel, child was living in America. The parent was nifter, it was already the next day in Israel, but still the day before in America. Which date do you go by for the Yartzeit? Do you go by the father's date? Child's date. So I saw Poskim want to say, if you're doing it for the parents plus, so you go by the day where they were when they were nifter. If you're doing it for your own protection from the Siman Ra, when did the bad mazel happen to you? It happened to you in America the day before. Now, I could hear this being debatable. Like, you only died, the person passed away there, it was that date. But if it's coming from the perspective of the relative of the nifter, the child, so then you have to go with the other date.
We want to say Kaddish both days because Kaddish is
right.
Not fasting. Fasting 2 days is part of it.
Right.
When you have, because a person who has a Yartzeit has kadima to the Amud for davening. So now which day does he get the Amud?
Right.
Or other availing.
Right. Now, we're giving this share first and foremost on the halachas of fasting. When it comes to saying Kaddish, I think that's more clear. That's for the second reason. The purpose of Kaddish is not your own self-protection. The purpose of Kaddish is a schus for the nifter. That's clear.
So then you go 100%.
It's only by a fast, we're finding these differences.
But even so,
what's the reason behind it?
So if you're unclear of what the day of passing really Patira really was, and you arbitrarily pick a date, does that become halachically the day of Patira? So that you get the Amud on that day then.
So yeah.
And what if there are other people who have?
That's a very good question. There's unfortunately during the Holocaust, there are many people that didn't know exactly when their relatives passed away, and what they would do is speak to Rabbanim, and they would set and pick a certain date.
Established date.
So what you're bringing up is how strong is that definition of a date? It's distinguishing this day as the Yartzeit. Would you be able to push another person off for the Amud? That again, also is his own topic.
Right, but here where we know the date, it just happens to be that I'm living here and he was living there.
Right.
But nothing happened to me.
Not true.
Nothing happened to
Try
me.
calling your father.
It's a no. I'm saying it's a byproduct, right?
Correct.
So now, I'm saying,
But Josh, I'll tell you the difference. The way I understand the shach, the way the shach is saying it is that you view the date, unfortunately, of a parent.
I'm sorry to say it that way, but I mean,
Right. No, this is. I must say, this is a sensitive topic.
I get it, but
this is a tricky topic, and
I'm saying
the biggest fights you always have in shul, unfortunately, really, Berger, what you brought up,
Over the
Josh.
yonder.
is battling,
BY product or BYE product?
right,
Yes, exactly.
right?
A
It's,
BUI.
it's really the most sensitive, touchy topic.
Joe
And,
picked a good day to be
you know,
out.
ideally. But the way I understand the Shach is the Shach is understanding this is a bad date for what happened to you. Obviously, it stems from the fact that the parent passed away. But it's viewed in your life, that's why for future reference, if a person, wants to schedule something, this is not the day to do it. So it hit you in America a different calendar date than it did over there.
Yeah, but that's gonna
Well,
happen. I mean, that's
yeah.
gonna happen. I mean,
No, I can hear the tzar. We just go. The mace is the main factor. That's really your argument.
Right, but
the
I mean-
mace is the main factor.
Yeah, but again, it's
to
the
go with
same
that
thing.
date.
Like, look, if it happens toward the very end of the day, and we're in the same place, and I didn't hear about it, I don't see how that's any different than it happened. It happened on Shabbos in Eretz Yisrael. I don't find out about it until 7 hours later.
It still happened to you at that time. You didn't know it.
No, because it wasn't Shabbos anymore in Eretz Yisrael. It happened on now Saturday night. It's 9:30 at night, but it's Shabbos here, right? It's like, okay, so I'm just saying, like, there are days like that also where there's no way that I'm finding out.
Yeah.
Also, October 7th, which is awful. Okay, so today we heard about it that day. We heard about it almost in some places. They heard about it as it was happening all over the world, right? But if this was 65 years ago, no one was able to hear about it on that day as it was happening. We would have heard about it Sunday night, Motzei Yom Tov. We would have never been able to hear about it on.
Right.
So the effect would have been entirely different.
Yes,
By Josh's
indeed.
logic, also,
Same
Louis
like-
a person in America hears about a parent's patira in Eretz Yisrael when it's Motzei Shabbos there, it's Shabbos here, let's say, or even middle of the week. Does that mean the person is not even an Oni yet because the parent hasn't been nifter yet legabe the
Right.
son?
If you're on Shabbos, it's right. It's a whole tricky.
Not only that, like they've already
It becomes a little
easily they've already done
becomes
everything in Eretz Yisrael, and we're here. And not only do we find out, your father passed away. Not only that, they buried him already, and I mean the whole thing is done. Everything is done in that. I mean, I'm just saying, like, it's a different.
Okay, so hold off.
I mean,
This is a whole Pandora's box once you start separating the parents from the children, even before they're in nifter. But hold on. I want to show one other very interesting nafkamina that I found in halacha. I mentioned before that the Mishabura applies this halacha also to one's Rebbe Muvak, his chief teacher. I found that Elia Rabbah argues in that and says it does not apply to one's Rebbe. And the reason he says is the following. Since the whole reason why we fast, Elia Rabbah assumes, like the Shach, is because the sakana of a dangerous day that only applies to a parent, not to a Rebbe. Flesh and blood, when your parent dies, that sets off an element of bad mazel for you. When a Rebbe passes away, it's a different thing. Not a bad mazel for the student. That's only by flesh and blood. Now, the Shlah, the Chavetz Chaim, who was bringing it, held the opposite way. He held, no, the reason why you fast, like the Chassam Sofer, is because of kavod. The reason you fast is to give something to that person, give something to the father, which would also apply to one's Rebbe. So this is another very interesting nafkamina they bring from the Elia Rabbah really versus the Shlah. Sounds like the way we're understanding the Chavetz Chaim is actually on the second tzad. Chavetz Chaim understands that the reason why I'm fasting is to give a kavod to one's parent, which would follow, you also give that honor and that schus to one's Rebbe. Now, the Rabbah is saying, no, it doesn't apply. It's only by a sakana. And sakana is only by parent to child, not teacher to student. Very interesting. Now, halacha l'maisa. What do we do? So, like most things, good machlokas.
It's a machlokas.
I found, this is what my friend brings on the bottom over here. Very interesting. I want to read the whole thing through. He says, Kamen Gdoli Olam, Hinagel Bizmanio Shadoris Cholshem, in our generations where people are weak, She'emis An Yartzeit. You do not fast on a Yartzeit. Ella, Marvin Beliman Torah, Mishnayis, of Tzedakah. You try to learn extra, learn Mishnayis, which directly works for Neshama. Give Tzedakah, Leon Nishmas Ames. He says this is also brought in the Sefer Mishmer Smachos. Shekait Tziva Agon Rabbi Kiva Eger Levanav. Shlois Ana Yartzeit. Even in the days of Rabbi Kiva Eger, he would tell his family not to fast on his Yartzeit. Rak Yomadu, Kol Meis Leis. He should learn for the entire day. Or Yisku Achirim Shiyomadu. Interesting. Or you should hire other people to learn. Sponsor a day of learning in the yeshiva. Right? They have it up there. V'chein Bito, Eishes Rabbeinu Chassam Sofer, the daughter of Rabbi Kiva Eger, the second wife of the Chassam Sofer, Tzivsula V'nel Shleizano. She went after her father and said her children shouldn't fast on her Yartzeit. That was a few hundred years ago. The Kakos of Archas Rabbeinu, a little closer to home, the Stipler, Yaakov Yisrael Kanievsky, Shakios Yaakov Omer Levno, he told it to his son Reb Chaim, our minhag is not to fast. His son listed. And he says the reason is, our fast days cause a person not to learn too much bittul Torah. The adif lomod l'inishmas, and it's better to learn as a schus for the mace. Ulam, however, he brings Agar Rabbi Yoshev hayamara shemishi bechiltu lotzom Yoshev with paskin. To whoever has the possibility to fast, shadav yifur lemudo mibli, without it hurting your learning. It's better to fast just like the din which is mentioned in the Shulchan Aruch Poskim. So practically what that would mean is you have two opinions to rely on. A person who physically finds himself, I would say there's two factors. First and foremost, a person's health. If a person is able to function, fast days are hard for him, he can't do anything, to spend most of the day resting, okay, you don't necessarily have to do that. There's definitely cleared stadim from poskim for hundreds of years that didn't fast. Okay. If a person, though, physically is up to it, that's a different story. This is something on the table. It's a halakha in Shulchan Aruch. At the same time, there's another factor of bittul Torah. That's also weighed. It depends how much Torah you're learning during the day. A person who's a Rav, someone in yeshiva, spending his day learning, okay, that's a cheshbon. Okay, maybe one shouldn't fast if it'll take away from one's learning. But if a person is learning, he's working, okay, it may not make that big a difference if he's fasting and not fasting. If he has coffee in the morning, didn't have his coffee in the morning. So there's more room for the Shulchan Aruch, for this halacha, for one to keep like this. And I don't think it matters what a person did in the past. Because, like I said, I think this is a halacha, it's not so well known. It just became over a bottle because a lot of people didn't do it over time. Like anything else, go through the halacha, you see it, you learn it, it's a different thing. And it's a new thing to be weighed, asked. Okay, the Yartzeit coming up, should I fast? Should I fast even half a day? That was brought up. The person could even fast from the morning to chatzos. That's something. Should a person do that? Right? That's literally just missing your morning coffee. So, there's what to gain. We see from the two reasons. It's what to gain in self-protection, insurance salesman. But there's also what to gain as giving us schus. I want to end with an interesting story I heard years ago. Rabbi Yisrael Reisman, famous speaker, tremendous Talmid Chacham, Rav, Rosh Yeshiva. His story in life was not an easy one. Might have had his father's cookie company supporting him in his years learning in yeshiva, but I believe he lost his mother when he was a young bacher. And I remember he came to speak. Rebbe in yeshiva in Brooklyn. We unfortunately lost a Talmud, and he was a very good speaker to come, and we're late. And he spoke about what it meant to him when he lost a parent at a young age. And he said his Rebbe Rav Pam, and he was his Rebbe Mulak, that told him the following mashal. He said, we believe that when a person's nifter, it's just going into a different room. And the neshama is alive, they're just not able to be in this world, but they're still here. It's really like a person going on a journey, and they're in a different place. Now, what happens when you're in camp, you're away from your parents? If your parents would send you regards, you feel pretty good. What happens if your parents sent you a letter? Wow, there's even more than a regards I got from a friend. It's something to read. It's a letter, things to do.
You send a salami.
Right? Or even best, they send you a package to camp filled with exciting stuff. You'd be elated. He says, we have those same things now. He says, parent passed away, you say Kaddish. That's regards. He wasn't talking about fasting. But, fasting, that's a letter. You can learn Torah, learn some Mishnayos for them, that's a full package. And you see, there are a lot of different things that one could do for a nifter, and it's really meaningful. Really, really meaningful. It's meaningful. We talked about today fasting, even for a person himself, for his own protection, possibly. But for sure, Animam Emunah Shlema, it's such a beautiful thing. Anyone who's ever been to Eretz Yisrael, I'll tell you to visit there. And also, it's not one of those spots necessarily on the tourist,
Masada.
List, right? And even the tour guides don't take you there. I used to go there a lot. I was right by yeshiva. There's a basic Kvaros right off Chov Shmuel Hanavi. Bar Ilan is Sanhedrin basic Kvaros. Yerushalayim, the most well-known ones are Har Zeitzim, which is not so easy to access nowadays, right next to the Makom HaMikdash, and Har Menuchos. Okay, nowadays people have to get into Beit Shemesh. But the third basic Kvaros, which is the Sfardim recognize it already, is the Sanhedrin basic Kvaros. There happens to be where Bavaji Yosef is buried, but Shmuel Berenbaum is buried there. But the first, careful what I say, but one of the great people who were first buried there, all types of Israelis, it's the general Israeli cemetery. One of the people who wanted to be buried with all the general people from Israeli society was someone called a tzaddik in our times, Aryeh Levine. Amazing, amazing tzaddik. He was the one who went around the prisons, the early founding of the state. Amazing, amazing person. He happens also to be Rabbi Yashu's father-in-law. He was a big tzaddik. On his kever is written, anyone who comes to visit my kever should say, Animam Emunah Shlema, that you believe in Tchias HaMesim, and Bez Hashem, the days that are coming, going to rise from here. And one of the most beautiful things is you go to that kever, many times you'll find all types of Israelis, secular Israelis even, davening by that kever. He had such an impact on the general Israeli society. They go there. But to say that, those words of Ani Mamin, to understand that we believe, fortunately, you go through these, you get the news flashes, another few soldiers were nifter. It's heartbreaking, it's sad. But you know what? They're in a good place, and they're going to be there. They're not going anywhere. They're only going up. And anything we do is a schus for them to go up more and more. And Be'ezus Hashem, we should soon see the day, like it says in that kever by Rabbi Levine of Tchias HaMesim, where we see all these people. They're coming to thank us. all the things that we did on their behalf.
So if we fast,
Huh?
if we fast, should we still serve schnapps and kichel?